Hi, I'm Jamie Dury. We have been looking at the foremost architecture from across the country to select the very best to go through to our top 10 for this series. So far, our team of industry leaders have chosen 8, and they're standing by at Woods Bagot Architects to fill those last 2 coveted positions. Welcome to Australia by Design Architecture. This episode, Peter's showing us through this stunning residence behind me. I'm taking you to a world-first boutique hotel in Victoria. Suzy is checking out the sunset over the Indian Ocean, and Jill is taking us shopping through a piece of Sydney history.
Well, the tram shed redevelopment project is quite remarkable. Located in the heart of one of Sydney's major growth areas, it's destined to become a community hub in the future.
This is a perfect example where architecture can actually change the social interaction of a once abandoned space.
It is always a gamble keeping an old building warts and all, but here in Sydney it is really paid off.
Let me show you this, what we got from
Okay.
day one. Wow, when we look at this, it's like, what a challenge. But at the same time, what an inspiration place we could start from. What a beautiful environment. What a robust material,
What an outrageous
the colours.
environment.
Yes.
The bones of it, I can see that you've actually, you've kept them. You've kept the skylights, you've kept the way the roof works, the way the light falls in.
We identify early on the brickwork of the building is to preserve as much as possible. The graffiti, preserve as much as possible.
It's actually almost a perfect place to put this kind of marketplace because of the scale of what you've got.
The quality of the material we think is will last for 100 years. I think we should embrace the palette, the rich tapestry of the surrounding, which is forming the vision for the Harrow Park.
Sometimes with projects like this, there's so much pressure to demolish the old and actually start again. Why'd you keep it?
Oh, for us, this is a challenge, and we love challenge. And as architect, we want to preserve and protect what is there, and then create something new for the community.
I really like the flavour of this internal space here. It's flexible, your furniture's on wheels. I think your design strategy really works. There's a really great sense of control in an area where there's such a diverse offer from different retailers. And I notice that there's much more in here than food and those sorts of things. There's some community services embedded in it.
Yeah, we got a community centre, and also we got a gym, people want to active, and then the health food shop, and also the food and these produce at the core of the tram shed.
And a supermarket.
Supermarket.
And I understand that this is designed as the heart of a very dense new urban residential development.
It's the central of our vision, where we want to creating something quite unique for the Harrow Park and also for the community.
So all of the new residents of this area will use this place. They'll use it for their supermarket shopping, they'll use it for their gym.
A meeting place. So it was truly a live, work and place.
In many ways, we're lucky this building was still standing when the designers came to it, having been shut up for so many decades. And luckier still that they took the hard road of reinvention rather than knocking it down.
Sometimes architecture can be a little like food. Some of its tastiest creations are slow cooked. Peter is savouring this stunning Sydney home behind me that spent a long time on the boil, blending simplistic sophistication with high-tech engineering.
This is just an incredible testament to concrete architecture. It's just beautifully crafted from the environment and the rocks that are the backdrop.
Construction is designed to the contours of the land and is a very warm and pleasing design.
The warmth of the internals, that's been another great job that has been done by collaboration between client and designers.
This home was 6 years in design and another 6 years in construction, but it was well worth the wait. Gerard, it's a very dramatic building, but it's really lovely the way it sits in the landscape.
This tree is really the centre of it all, literally and figuratively as it were. The tree was something that the clients really were interested in retaining and gathering around on site, and we said, well, why don't we literally gather the building around the tree? So it's always quite funny when you bring people here because they'll see photos of the house and see this soaring concrete cantilever, and then you turn up and you go, oh, it's actually quite recessive in the landscape, isn't it? And I think to us that was very important, that if we were going to really be part of the landscape, there's something about putting rectangular floor slabs and walls in which mean you're building no matter what you do. So here, the idea is everything is slightly twisting, slightly turning, slightly rolling. So I think you really generally do have a sense that you are just in the site. You're definitely not at any point opening a door and going into a house. It's part of the site.
We've always felt, for the work that we do, that corridors are lost space. And with this house, the opportunity to use the corridor as a device or a method for connecting you back to the landscape was really important. The corridor that sits to the front of the house is orienting you to the landscape, and it's bent around this beautiful scribbly gum in front of us.
In a way, it's got a very sheltering quality, and it's almost like you're in a rock shelf.
Yeah, exactly. And so the timber that we've woven into the spaces is a way of holding people in an intimate moment. So it allows us to handshake between the big sculptural qualities of the concrete and then bring you back into a more intimate way of living.
It really has a cave-like quality, like it scoops out, like,
yeah.
it's part of a natural formation.
Absolutely, and that's the sculptural quality of the concrete. It was really important. That's where Pascal Gomes McNabbs from Melbourne was an amazing collaborator on this from the interior design point of view, where she became a part of our practice for the period of this project to deliver all the beautiful qualities that Fiona, the client, was looking for in terms of an intimate living experience.
Yeah, wow, this is a real bathroom.
Absolutely. This is one of the most opulent moments in the house, and it's an amazing way to start your day.
And we're getting into this very deep bath.
Yes, well, this was always a request for the client, was to have a onsen, Japanese onsen bath, and it gave us that beautiful moment to connect as well to the Australian landscape through this big pivot window.
Obviously, it was a very long project. In many respects, I think it was a positive experience to have that time because it gives you the ability to problem solve things as you go, and you actually do get a better result because it's not rushed.
As well as your relationship with the architect, you also brought on an interior designer.
With Pascal coming on board, she took it in a different direction, which created more intimacy within the structure. Chris and Gerard Terroir, they worked extremely well together, and I think that's why we've got this fantastic result. Given time, this house will change again because it's now all about the gardens and it fitting into the landscape with the greenery around it. I think if you come back in 5 years, you'll see a completely different transformation here.
It's very easy to build a concrete bunker, but with skill and artistry, concrete can be beautiful. The brilliant thing about this design is the way the home wraps around this magnificent gum tree. It really feels like living in nature.
We are only 2 stories away from finding out our top 10 projects for this season. But first, let's kick off our shoes and head to the beach with Suzy.
Falcon Beach House is a design that's well connected to its surrounds, both in terms of the neighbouring properties and also its beachside setting.
It was a project which, to me, just screamed simplicity. I liked how we've got an influence of a Queenslander on the West Coast with the elevated architecture, giving it a very light and airy feeling, and just the consistency of the materials used.
This is a house that references an architecture from a simpler time, the 60s beach house. You're going to see that architecture, great architecture, doesn't have to be big, bold and loud. Adrian, we're really elevated here.
Yeah, we wanted to lift everybody up to be high up with the horizon line, with a great view over the ocean, and make that feel really light. And then the benefit of doing that is we create this great garden underneath, a completely different world. So up here is all white and light, almost this sort of sense of hovering, whereas downstairs we purposely made it dark. So there's the dark brick and then there's the darker surfaces. So it's this underworld, almost like being below and above sea level.
We have got the most amazing climate here. It's very extreme, from -2 to say 42. We have really big winds and we have a stunning sunsets over the ocean.
It's really intense, the temperatures here, and the wind in particular, seaborne salts everywhere. So it was really important, first of all, to orientate the house so we could have a protected deck out here. Luckily, the prevailing winds predominantly come from the back in summertime, so we could have this sheltered space here that's north facing, which allows us to also capture north sun in winter and to heat up spaces. But then to look at a sense of durability from the materials. So the Colorbond Ultra that you'll see all around the house was critical to not only reference the older houses, the 60s, our heroic period of architecture, but to also create a material which is nice and light, but at the same time durable.
And you've used a sort of polycarbonate here to give you a translucency.
Yeah, so that does a number of things. It gives us privacy when you're sitting on the deck. It creates protection from the wind and the rain, but at the same time at night time it's got this sort of great sense of it just glows, it becomes this lantern.
And it's interesting, in front of the living room you've actually done a cutaway. Why is that?
Yeah, we wanted to capitalise on that opportunity where there's a dip in the dune, and that enabled us to have a view from inside the house sitting down onto the beach.
There's a story to that blowout, isn't there?
The local surf break Geary's is named after Ray Geary, who lives behind the house and spent many years surfing, and Ray and his friends would go and walk down the beach through this location, and over time eroded the dunes, created a track, and then the wind being so harsh blew out the plants, and that just grew and grew and grew over time.
Perfect for this site.
Absolutely perfect for this site.
It's lightweight construction, and inside though you've got a concrete floor. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah, mostly due to insulation and making sure we could have this thermal mass. Thermal mass is really important because it allows us to heat that up during winter with the direct sun, and that heat then reverberates back through, slowly releasing through the house over the night. And it also allows us, under the energy assessment codes, to have more glass.
Really simple finishes.
Yeah.
So it isn't trying to be what it isn't. It's actually a beach house.
It's really, we talk about it as being a backdrop to this great setting, and it doesn't try to compete with that ocean view.
What a spectacular view it is. It really feels like you are sitting on the sand dunes. Having spent a lot of time in an old asbestos beach shack here when I was a kid around here, was that part of your design drivers?
Oh, definitely. It was really important to reference those older buildings, but then what we have done by lifting it so high, it's almost as though it's the modesty of the 50s and 60s house, in some ways on steroids.
It's a beach house, and it's a stunning beach house. What else did you want?
Well, I wanted something that was easy to look after, something that was family friendly, because I wanted my family and friends to be able to come and share this with me.
So a lot of people think that you wouldn't use an architect for a smaller house like this, a beach house.
Oh, I've always wanted to have an architect designed house. I think the architects have a way of capturing the good things on any particular block, and it looks fabulous.
What more can you ask? Growing up in Perth, I spent pretty much every weekend and every school holidays at my parents' beach shack just north of here. The architecture of Falcon Beach House manages to capture the authenticity and simplicity of our modest shack, along with the necessities that we all expect at our home. It's beautiful.
We have been on an incredible journey around the country, looking at some of the best architecture that Australia has to offer. Now, there's just enough time for me to share with you one last story in beautiful Mornington Peninsula in Victoria before we fill out our final list for the season.
Whilst this project is a bold statement, it also represents a design that's sympathetic to the barn and agricultural-like architecture in which it sits.
What you're about to see is the first of its kind in the world. It's a compelling blend of deep Australian history and courageous contemporary design. And there's a reason why Time magazine put this hotel on the list of the top 100 places to visit in the world. And I'm proud to say that it's gently nestled into the gorgeous landscape of the Mornington Peninsula right here in Victoria. Welcome to Jackalope. Well, I have to say, Stephen, you've created an incredible backdrop for this heritage building. I mean, what's that, 120 years old?
Yep, thereabouts.
And you've got this super contemporary, bold black architecture wrapped around it. It's extraordinary. I mean, this is the first of its kind in Australia, right?
Yep, very much. This is the first of its kind for Jackalope as a brand. So from the early outset, it was quite a challenge in that there was no star rating or design guidelines, like much larger hotels. However, we found this as a really amazing challenge, working both as the conductor for the architecture and interiors, but in collaboration with many artists and many amazing consultants.
And this being one of them, right? I mean, the Jackalope.
Yes, the 7-metre high sculpture by Emily Floyd.
And so that really was the beginning of this Jackalope brand, which you kind of had to start from scratch on. How did you get away with all of this?
It is bold, it's muted, but there's a purpose behind it. It's all about theatre, it's all about art. This was to really give a vivid contrast between the landscape of the new and the existing and ever-changing landscape of the vines. It's really about redefining what a country retreat should be. So thinking outside the box, moving away from that conventional rural stay of rustic timbers and rustic architecture, and really creating something unique.
So in a way, that framed view kind of looks out across the pool, which is almost like a mirror, isn't it?
We purposely lined the pool in a black tile finish.
Yeah.
We really wanted to create a glass-like finish, which reflects the sky during the day, but it really becomes alive at night.
I mean, you can see the way the sun's dancing across it now. And so what is this structure here? It's like an architectural installation.
It's a modern take on a traditional garden pavilion. So it is the pool pavilion, known as the Geode. It acts as a multi-purpose facility, so it's got accessible toilet, it's got a bar facility for guests, and then the Geode room itself, which is a multi-purpose private dining and spa facility.
Well, I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen a triangular opening door on any structure anywhere in the world.
No.
Can I swing it?
Yep, sure, go ahead.
It's quite amazing.
Yep, and I guess that's part of the theatrics of the Geode and the pool pavilion itself.
And I guess in a way, this mirror on the back here reflects the vineyard.
Exactly. That was the main purpose of lining the inside of the door, so it's always that constant reminder of where you are.
I kind of like this reflection. I feel like I just grew a new set of longer legs. Very nice work there, mate. This is a subtle yet contemporary piece of design that sits beautifully in the landscape and in the story of Australian architecture. And I think the architects have done an incredible job at creating an understated vessel that houses one of the best curated collections of Australian art and design that I have ever seen. So much so that we're bringing our cameras back to purely focus on the interiors. And after seeing what I've just seen, I think I'm going to stay right here and wait for it. Now it's time for the judges to pick their last two projects for the final episode's countdown.
It's no surprise that Castle Cove has made the final. When you look at the angles of the exterior, it is just a beautiful piece of concrete architecture.
I'm glad to see tram sheds in the final. This is a perfect example of how social innovation can happen with clever architecture.
It really was very well regarded by the whole judging panel.
Congratulations and thank you to all of our architects. What a thrill it has been to see all of your beautiful work. Now that we've got our top 10, who is number 1?